I got this walnut slab over a year ago from Nathan at Out of the Woods Forestry, and I hadn't really found anything to use it for. So when the idea came up to build this chessboard, it made a lot of sense to use it for that. I wanted to preserve the live edges on this slab and use those to build a base for the chessboard. So here I'm just laying out how I'm going to cut this slab up in order to yield all the material that I'm going to need for this project. When you're working with basically raw lumber, there's a lot of work that goes into it just to be able to get it to a place that you can do anything with it. I go ahead and joint the pieces to get them flat and to get a straight edge because I'm going to have to plane them and also rip them on a table saw. This chessboard is going to be walnut and ash, so I had Nathan find me this beautiful hunk of ash, and I go ahead and start working it down. And then it's back to the jointer to get these pieces of ash flat and put a straight edge on them. You may notice from time to time I'll put a pencil mark down the piece. That's just a reference so that I know when I begin to evenly remove material. Then I plane the materials to thickness before I start breaking them down even more. I'm breaking down the pieces that will eventually become the chessboard and create the playing pattern. These are the pieces that will be glued up, and eventually I will cross-cut them to a consistent length. You'll notice that I'm using a spacer, and that's so that I'm not cross-cutting these pieces with them resting up against the fence and take a chance on them getting twisted up and having a kickback. This will be an end grain board, so there's 2 glue-ups in the sequence, and this is the first one. I don't have a lot of extra material to work with because these pieces are almost at final dimension, so I'm taking a lot of care to get this thing glued up really straight and really flat. After a few hours in the clamps, I take it out, and I was really pleased with how it turned out. I give it a very gentle planing and sanding to remove any glue squeeze out and to bring it back flat. I square one side of the board so I can start cutting off the parts that will become the end grain pattern. This shim gives me a reference so that I can cross-cut all the pieces consistently. And then I cut the blocks that will be used in the second glue-up of this board. And of course, I end up with the one odd piece that I have to rip against the fence. At this point, the project starts to come to life a little bit, and here's the pattern. On the second glue up, the end grain is facing up, and again, I don't have a lot of extra material to work with, so I take a lot of care to get everything straight and flat. After a few hours in the clamps, I take it out, and I was pretty pleased with how this one turned out as well. I square up both sides of the board, and I use some painter's tape to prevent tear out. I don't have a drum sander, so I had to go at it the hard way with my belt sander and my Rotex, but with a little work and some patience, I was able to get this chessboard really flat. Now it's time to go ahead and start working on the base of this chessboard, so I plane these live edge pieces to the dimension that I need. I miter these edges to an approximate length, but I will eventually come back and adjust these more accurately. The slots that I'm cutting will accommodate the interior panel of the storage compartment of the base. This relief is what the chessboard will actually rest on when everything is assembled. And this is the inside panel of the storage compartment. Now it's time to go ahead and start assembling the base, and working with these live edges was a little bit difficult, but I was eventually able to get everything to fit really nice, and I was pleased with how it turned out. I'm using rapid fuse to glue these miters together, and it's pretty nice. It sets in 30 seconds and it cures in 30 minutes. I use a cove bit to carve a small relief so you can get your finger in there to lift the chessboard out. A coping saw worked really nice to make these live edge corners uniform. Dark walnut Danish oil really brought these pieces to life. After I sanded the chessboard with 120 grit, I wipe it with a damp rag to raise the end grain, and then I sand through the grits again beginning at 220. And then I hand sand it with 320, and again with 400. When I applied this oil, it really started to come to life and the magic started to happen. I applied several coats, and each time the finish would get more and more rich. A few coats of lacquer really made the base come to life too. I gently rubbed it with some steel wool, and that made the finish really nice and smooth. And then I put some of these felt cushions on the bottom. After the oil had penetrated and cured on the chessboard, I sealed it with some wax and I buffed it to a really smooth finish. And this is how it all goes together. You can see the storage compartment and how the chessboard sits in the base. And this is the little relief for the finger pull. These are the only chess pieces that I have, and they were given to me by Jimmy Diresta. They're plastic castings of the brass pieces that he made a few years ago. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel and leave me some comments. And I believe that's checkmate. Thanks for watching.